Gigabyte sent me their Z270X-Ultra Gaming board. This is kind of the more value version of the Gaming 7, so still does feature a lot of nice stuff, including RGB fusion and SmartFan 5, and a pretty nice audio setup too, just missing things like the dual Gigabit Ethernet. Otherwise, inside the box you get the usual stuff, obviously the motherboard itself, motherboard manual, driver disc, I/O shield, and the SATA cables and all that good stuff. And the board is very stylish, obviously mostly black with a few sort of silver chrome accents for the reinforced PCI slots and the reinforced RAM slots as well, and of course under the socket 1151 sockets you also have the M.2 slot. Otherwise, you do have the acrylic bar on the side that lights up with the RGB fusion stuff, and also the lighting in between RAM slots as well, which is kind of crazy. You also have two USB 3.0 front panel headers next to each other, and as I said, the nice audio solution too. You also have the RGBW header down the bottom if you want to plug in an LED strip and match it with the LEDs on the case, and otherwise you have some storage on the right hand side, so two SATA ports sort of facing upright, a U.2 connector, as well as two SATA Express connectors, which can double as 4 normal SATA ports. You also have SmartFan 5 headers dotted around the board as well, and in terms of the rear I/O you have two USB 2 PS2 combo ports, DVI USB Type-C and 3.1, HDMI, two USB 3.0, two more USB 2.0s, and a very nice 7.1 audio setup. Once you get the motherboard all set up inside your system, you're going to notice that it is a very bright, very LED ridden affair. It is actually quite nice to look at, especially if you set it to a colour that matches something like your GPU, but you can obviously turn them off in both the BIOS and in the Windows software. This is the easy mode for the BIOS if you're interested, but generally you're going to be using on the classic mode, especially if you want to do any overclocking. There's actually a lot of control over overclocking here. It's a very nice affair here, and obviously you do have the SmartFan 5 software in the BIOS as well as in Windows if you want to mess with that. And otherwise it is a fairly well laid out, reasonably easy to use BIOS, but I will talk a little bit more later about that. This board has the same BIOS as the Gaming 7, which means that it has the same great level of detail, especially in the overclocking settings, but does have the same issue that all the overclocking settings are just hidden away, and especially if you're relatively new to overclocking, you don't necessarily want to have to navigate through 4 or 5 different menus just to do a simple overclock. I'd really like to see the base clock, the multiplier, the core voltage, and the XMP settings all on the first page without having to go through into a sub menu. That would be a very nice way to change it up just slightly to make it a little bit more usable. Since this video is filmed pre-launch, I can't tell you the exact retail pricing, so feel free to check out the Overclockers UK and the worldwide Amazon link in the description down below for the exact current pricing where you are. But otherwise, from what I understand, it sits at a pretty good price point, obviously lower than the Gaming 7, and provides a pretty good value for money. The I/O is also pretty good too. You have a nice collection of USB 3.1 and Type-C, as well as USB 2 and USB 3.0. It's actually quite nice to see USB 2 on the motherboard, just as a little bit of a backwards compatibility for sometimes when USB 2 devices run over USB 3, especially through the USB 3 controllers. Sometimes things just don't quite work, so it is quite nice to see, but yeah, otherwise you do also have the M.2 slot there, which is nice for you. Obviously the extra 4 PCIe lanes available on the Z270 chipset, and otherwise, as I said, it's just a nice value board. It sits at a good price point, and overall I'm pretty happy to recommend it. In terms of scoring, I'm going to go with a 4.5 for value for money, 5 for performance, and a 4.5 for functionality, style, and TechteamGB score. I'm going to give it the Gold Award because it is a really nice motherboard. As I said, it sits at a good price point, and I think for someone who's looking for a board that they can overclock on, just use as a stylistic, piece in the system. Obviously, the LEDs, both the RGB element or just turning them off, is quite good too. So yeah, it's a nice motherboard, and I do recommend it. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful and informative. If you did, feel free to subscribe and like. If you're planning on buying one of these motherboards or just want to check out the price, I'll leave a link to Amazon worldwide or Overclockers UK that you can check out, and please do use those links or just the general Overclockers UK or Amazon links in the description down below if you're buying anything from any of those places. And otherwise, as I said, yeah, thank you for watching. Feel free to follow me on Facebook and Twitter as well for more updates, news, and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we'll see you all in the next video.